vocabulary? What if it's very limited? Then your ability to express what you think, express how you feel, is limited. So by a very restricted vocabulary, if you can't understand very well, and if you can't express very well, then your world becomes very, very small, and you only need a place 8 by 10 to live. So jot this down. Make one of the books a very important book, and that is the dictionary. The word you don't understand? I think Dennis mentioned that earlier. Come to a word you don't understand, you look it up. Say, what is this word? Words are like lights. It's like another light. Now make this note now, especially the English language. There's nothing richer than the English language because there's so many ways to say it in English. In some languages, there's only one way to say it. In English, there's another way to say it, and another way to say it, and another way to say it. When I travel to all these countries and have to have translators, it gets to be difficult sometimes. Expressing something that makes sense in English because we have several ways to say it, but in their language there's only a couple of ways to say it. So the translator has a tough job sometimes translating. So I've had to learn to amend and modify, work on my presentation when I travel needing translation. When I first went to Japan, I said to my audience, he was all bent out of shape. And my translator said, what the heck does that mean? Right? I can't translate that into Japanese. So that would make sense in English, right? We know what that meant, but in Japanese, how would you describe that? So I learned not to use those kind of phrases. My first Chinese audience, I said, he blew his top. My Chinese translator said, wouldn't look good in Chinese with the characters. So, right, I have to modify and change and, right, poetry and some things just don't work with translation. Stories make sense in English, don't make sense in another language. So, it's interesting. It's interesting when you have multi-languages. One of Herbalife's big conventions, 35,000 in the Georgia Dome, 21 languages. Everybody in the audience has got these headphones on. And you hit the punchline, the Spanish get it first, and then the French get it, and then the Germans get it, and then finally the Italians get it. Some of them seems like it takes a little longer to catch on, but it's the translation. Some translations take a little longer to translate than others. So it is a challenge to help somebody to understand something simultaneously in 21 languages. So you have to learn how to present, how to do the stuff, so that it's easier for the translators to make sense, right, of what you're trying to say. It's interesting. But the gift of language is so powerful, it's worth the exercise. It's worth the effort. Okay? Vocabulary. Brevity. Style. Repetition. Sincerity. Saying it well. Here's another one on saying it well. Don't fail to say it. You need the practice. Practice everywhere. If you're going to give someone a gift and send a little card, practice making this little card something they'll keep and remember for the rest of their lives. Not ordinary, extraordinary. Not like everyone else, different than everyone else. It's the practice of using your gift of saying things another way until a light turns on. Another way that expresses something heartfelt that the standard ordinary language wouldn't express, couldn't reach, couldn't paint these mental pictures. It's okay to give flowers, but don't let flowers do all your talking. Flowers have a limited vocabulary. Guess what flowers say? You remembered. That's about all they say. Flowers don't say, nobody in this world affects me like you do. Love. See, flowers talk, but they don't say that. That you got to put in the little card. Nobody in this world affects me like you do. Love. And then you sign it. And see, long after the flowers are gone, somebody's going to keep the words. The words are more powerful than the flowers. So don't let flowers do all your talking. See if you can't choose the words that are meaningful, words that are unique, And the more you do this, practicing every little occasion to say something well, every little occasion to say something well, whether it's a little talk to the family gathering, or whether it's training, or whether it's inspiring, or a little class on Sunday morning, whatever it is, keep improving, find a new way to say it, a new illustration, a new story. You'll get better. The gift will belong to you, and the effect could be electrifying. Don't fail to say it. Now, women are better at this really than men. Women seem to be able to find the language much easier to say something. Men have to work at it a little harder. So come on, men. Let's work at this thing a little harder. See if we can't say something meaningful that's, not just standard, ordinary. That's okay, right? But just think of ways. When my wife Judy and I parted ways, wow, that was a unique experience. I wrote this little note. Dear Judy, as often as the night comes, so does my sadness. As constant as the day arrives, so is my love for you. I wish for you and I wish the best for you, and I understand that dilemma. My life is here where you touched me. If ever you would call, I would be there to be touched again. It wasn't very long. It was just a few words. But I tried to express what was going on in my heart and soul at the moment. So I'm asking you, don't fail to say it. Here's an expression we've heard. Words are no substitute for action. That's true. Let me give you another one. Action is no substitute for words. It's okay to do, but you've also got to say. Express it, as clumsy as it might be to start. Start a better program of better communication, saying it better. Now here's one more, and we're going to take a stretch break. If you're okay, say I'm okay. Is this stuff helpful so far? Fantastic. I want to check, just in case we need to shut down here and go home. Here's the next one now that's really challenging, but it really works, and that is read your audience. Whether it's an audience of a child or an audience of a training class, or whether you're a minister and you preach, here's what you've got to do. Say something well, but then read the effect you're having. In those early days, I had to quickly read. Should I keep going or should I quit? I mean, is it over? Or, you got to read it. And at first, I started just going through my notes like this, and I didn't look up. That was just to get your attention. Okay. I would go through my notes, and I wouldn't look up. I would just go through my notes and go through my notes. Some of those early classes, I think everybody could have left, and I'd have just kept on going right through my notes. Then finally, I learned to start looking up to see if it's okay. Should I slow down? Should I speed up? Am I coming on a little too strong? Should I get a little softer? This is what reading is all about. If you're talking to a child, should you really pour it on or should you hesitate? Should you save this for another time or do it now? Some of that you've got to pick up by reading the child. Read what's happening to your audience of 1 or 1,000. This is a challenge, but it'll help you in framing better the words you need to say and the style you need to use. Okay. If a guy's leaning toward the door, that means you probably should hurry. He's not going to be here long. Get it done. Now, in reading, there's 3 things. Jot these down. 3 things in reading your audience. First, you read what you see. Salespeople soon learn. If the customer's got his arms folded and his chin tucked down and he's frowning, this one ain't going to be easy. Right? This one's going to take all my skill to get his arms unfolded, make him a little more comfortable, get that frown off of his face. What can I do? I got to reach in my bag for some good stuff, right? To see if I can't sort of change the situation. And what causes us now to do those amendments in our presentation? It's reading someone's body language, right? what's happening. Here's the next one. You've got to read what you hear. If it's a two-way conversation, you've got to listen as well as talk. Mama said 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen twice as much as you talk at least, maybe more. Listen so that you can now know how to proceed, especially if you're talking to a child. You listen so that you know how to proceed. No use going on and on if just a couple of things will do, and by listening you pick that up, by listening. Here's the next one. You got to pick up the emotional signals, how you feel, whether you're coming on too strong, whether you should be stronger or easier this time. That's an art in reading. First, what you see. Second, what you hear. Third, read how you feel. Now, this is where women really have it made. Being able to feel, sense. Woman says, doesn't feel right. Man says, what does that mean? Doesn't feel right. She says, I'm telling you, something. Women know about this stuff. Something isn't. Wow. And they pick it up. Men can learn better on how to pick up these emotional signals, but women seem to have it, right? They're tuned in. It's built in. Because there's no use going on and on. If the signal should have told you, wow, this is not the time. This is too strong. Picking up not only what you see and what you hear, but what you feel. Now, here's the last one. And I'm finished for us to go take a break. To achieve good communication, something good to say, saying it well, reading your audience. Here's the last one. Intensity. Intensity is the emotional part of communication. Communication is both words and emotion. Here's what's really powerful. Words loaded with emotion. See, that's what's unbelievably powerful. It can move nations. It can help people change directions. It can establish an ideology, for good or for bad. Look at Hitler and his ability to preach. Look at Stalin and his ability to preach. Lenin, as wrong as they were, they believed it with all of their heart. Disastrous results, but they put everything they had into it. The emotional content was unbelievable. Powerful. Yes, in an evil direction, but it can also be used for a good direction. This intensity, strength, power, emotion. Words are words. Words are like a little straight pin. Right? A guy buys a shirt, and it's got all these little pins in it. Little straight pins that you got to take out. What if I took one of those straight pins, and I threw it at you, and it hit you in the face or the hand? You'd feel it. That's my words that got you, the little straight pin. But what if I took that little straight pin and wired it to the end of an iron bar about this long? And then I let you have it. See, I could drive the pin through your heart. The iron bar is the emotion. The pin is the words. Now, here's the craft. And conversation is a craft. Don't get lazy in learning this craft, because it'll serve you so well at home. It'll serve you so well in the marketplace. It'll serve you so well in your career and making your fortune. This craft of communication. Here's the combination. Well-chosen words mixed with measured emotion. Not only do the words have to be well-chosen, the emotion has to be well-measured. Meaning, not too much power for a minor point. The actor on the stage or in the movies, in giving a performance, has to learn this craft of the right amount of emotion with the dialogue and the words that are to be spoken. It can be so powerful if it's measured well. See, if you had a powerful point and a little bit of emotion, that wouldn't make sense. Nobody would get it. Nobody would say, well, for such a powerful point, it's not a very strong emotion. So then you can't come on too strong with some minor point. You know, sometimes kids have a legitimate objection You're making too big a deal. And sometimes parents have a tendency to do that, to make a big deal out of a little bitty deal. So here's the key. Make a big deal out of a big deal, and then smaller emotional content on a little minor deal. That's an art. That's a craft. When you go fishing, what do they say? Don't pull too hard, you'll lose the fish. Don't give them too much line. They'll get away. So it's called pull, pull, pull. Easy, easy. Pull, pull, easy, easy. Pull, easy. That's like communication. Strong, but not too strong, not too strong. Close, but not too close. If you talk to somebody, this is too close. This is too close. Give them a little more room. Adjust your style to fit the occasion and the emotional content so that it works, so that it makes sense. That when you burst on the scene, it's called for. The point is called for, that much emotion. This is a craft. Don't get lazy here. And the reason I ask you not to get lazy here is because the payoff is so great. Whether it's working on a job or advancing your career or at home with your family or communicating with your spouse. Whatever it is, craft your communications. Be a little more aware and just ask yourself, could I possibly get better at affecting people with my language and my words and my style and my emotions and all the rest? And the answer is yes, we all could. I could, you could. That's why I'm here, to practice my craft as well as to deliver my message, to see if I can't be better this year than I was last year. Now, we've got a lot more to cover on communication, some unique kind of stuff that I think you'll enjoy. But right now, we've got to take a break.
Hello, I'm Vic Johnson. I'm here this afternoon with superstar Dennis Waitley, the 2004 Jim Rohn Weekend event. Thank you for being with us and sharing a little bit. Dennis, I wanted to ask you to expand a little bit on this morning's talk over in the room next door. You were just outstanding on purpose, vision, and goals.
Right.
And I know you talked about how to tie other people into your vision. And how do you get people on board, so to speak, with your vision?
I think the main thing is to make it seem like it's their vision. The only way I've ever had other people buy into what I do is show so much interest in what they're doing that they end up talking more about what they're doing, and they think I'm a great communicator because I'm listening and paying attention to them. And I found that by showing real interest in what their main turn-ons are, that makes them bond with me because they know that I'm interested in them first before they show interest in me. So by showing interest in other people, their imagination, their goals, their desires, they actually think that I'm going to be a steward for them, and I mean that sincerely. I will. So I always say, what can I do for you, before I ever say, what can you do for me?
Where do I find them at? If I want, I've got this dream, this vision to do something, where would I go out and find? If I were Jeff Bezos and I were starting Amazon today, where would I go find people to help me start the world's largest online store? Or any big dream, where would I start?
Well, I think one of the things you have to do is you need to hang around with other entrepreneurs. So if you're going to be an online store like Amazon, you got to hang around the library and the bookstores. And you have to see what they're doing in the bookstores, what's selling, how they're putting them up front, how they're merchandising them. I didn't realize, for example, that they do it alphabetically. And therefore, if your name is Covey, you're in the C's about eye level, and if your name is Waitley, you're at the bottom on the floor. So sometimes I have to take my book and move it up. But what I've decided to do is hang around with people who are really doing things in life. And I think attending programs like the Jim Rohn Weekend and going on your websites and really, if you will, becoming a student of entrepreneurs who are teaching, and it rubs off on you. And the next thing you know, there are mastermind groups that develop, and you start hanging around with people who have the same ideas. One of the worst things you can do is hang around with people with similar problems, because even though it's comfortable, even though it's almost like the gang. I'd rather hang around with people more successful than me. So if you're going to be a good golfer, always play with people who are better than you, And even though you're not going to do as well, you're going to learn more. So go to success programs as much as you can.
So it's true what my mother said, birds of a feather flock together.
They do. They do indeed. And you shall know them by their works, and they hang around together. No question. That's why I've always tried to, even when I was young, I used to go to these type of programs, and I would sit in the back of the arena.
Right.
And I would say, I shouldn't say this, but I think I could do that. And you get obsessed with it, and that's how we can maybe get into the thing on purpose. I think there's really a way to find out what your purpose in life is.
Right. Well, I know that, a lot of people come to me and they ask me that, how do I find my purpose? I'm a person, I've got something inside of me that's got to come out, but I don't know what it is. How do I find my purpose in life? What do I do? What's a process I could go through?
Well, the first thing you should do is dust off your childhood. And that's really important. I've been studying that for so many years now, age 5 to 15. You begin to decide to think and know about yourself when you're about 5, and you develop some interests. And there's been a BBC video that was called 7 Up. And they took 50 children age 7, and they monitored them and did videos of them every 7 years. The first one was 7, then 14, 21, 28, 35, 42. And they found that what the kids were showing signs of being good at when they were 7 through 14, and then somehow they got off track because they got into peer pressure and adult pressure and professor pressure, and they began to go in the direction that people were telling them they should go in, getting away from what their talents were. So the first thing you need to do is do a childhood audit. What did I like to do from 5 to 15? What was a real turn-on for me? Interestingly enough, when I was a kid, I sang and talked for cookies.
Oh, really?
And I went house to house, and I figured that if I could sing a song or say something funny, they'd give me a cookie. And I say, there must be something in there somewhere. Gave it up completely, realizing that I did like to talk, I like to read, I like words. So you end up being a nuclear weapons delivery pilot. You end up going to a military academy. You end up fighting for your country. But instead of being a defender of people, I wanted to be a developer of people. And I found that what I loved to do when I was a little boy is what my purpose ended up being when I was a grown man. But it took me until I was in my 40s to make that full circle transition. So what do you like to do in your spare time? There's a talent in there somewhere. What do you like to do? What your purpose in life often is hidden in what you love to do. And if you can take what you love to do and what you do well and extend that into a career, or even if it becomes your service hobby, maybe you earn money another way, but you get your real kicks out of life doing this thing you love, and therein lies your purpose, because God-given talents need to be directed in some way that just really turns you on. I mean, I can hardly wait to wake up. Yeah. I haven't been to work in 30 years, and neither has a scientist, and neither has a pro golfer. Well, they hit a bucket of balls, and Lee Trevino said, as long as they're daylight, there are golf balls to be hit, and you get blisters on your hands. But if you love what you're doing, the practice part of it doesn't become monotonous. So that's why passion and obsession become purpose if they're directed in a way that helps other people.
Great. Well, I know you've coached Super Bowl athletes, Olympic athletes. You've had super achievers you've worked with in every field. When it comes to goal setting, what's the difference between them and the average Joe? What do you see?
Not much. Not much difference, except that they have channeled that, and they have decided to become focused in one arena at a time. And otherwise, you become jack of all trades, master of none. I mean, I became a permanent consultant. I was good at a lot of things, but nothing really good at one thing. And until I concentrated, maybe on the psychology of winning and becoming an audio speaker on tape and pushing that up to the consciousness, did I ever become successful. But if you can find a team or a coach and a mentor, and you get focused in one area, your expertise grows with that, and you develop focus and discipline around that one thing. People say, well, wait a minute, if you do that, you're just going to be good at that. The great thing about that is when you're successful in one thing, They think you're a success in your whole life. And they give you free tickets when you could afford them. This is what the crazy thing about being really good at something. They give you free tickets when you're making more money than the average Joe. So the thing to do is take one thing and become really good at it. And then people will sponsor you. The other thing, of course, is that when you have a team, when you have comrades, when you have friendly competition, like Olympians, or you have to run wind sprints, and you have to compete with one another on the same team, you find yourself helping other people because you're all on the team together. You're not going to beat anyone out of their position, but you're trying to be your best among a fast field. So I think realizing that you're with a team of winners, that you're disciplined by training, and no train, no gain. Super Bowl, Olympic, astronaut, all the same. Rehearse, on the field, simulate, drill, learn the plays, remember. The next thing you know, it becomes like driving your car or brushing your teeth, second nature. And everyone says, look at that, spontaneous performance. Spontaneity is conditioned reflex.
Right.
You're only spontaneous when you've learned to do it before and you're comfortable doing it. But you don't just do it without learning. So I think the coach, the equipment, the team, the comrades, and the training is everything.
Well, I've done my goals, and I've gone through this great exercise to do my goals. I've laid out all my objectives. I've got my calendar laid out, and I'm ready to go, but I just can't get going. And it goes on for weeks or months, and I just can't get going. And then I'm going to start beating up on myself. How do you get started sometimes when you've got it all laid out in front of you? What's keeping you from getting started, or how do you get started?
You have to find an accountable partner. I mean, who wants to work out when it's cold or rainy? In fact, who wants to work out anyway? But if you've made a commitment to someone else that you're going to meet them at a certain time at a certain place, or you get a few people, and you know there has to be a quorum in order to get a vote, I actually find 2 or 3 people who are willing to get together once a week, and they keep you honest because you're accountable to one another. So one of the best ways to get started is to make the announcement publicly that you're going to do it, and then have somebody who, instead of trying to say, I knew you couldn't do it, who keeps you saying, come on, you said you're going to do it, I'm going to hold you to it, and we're going to do this together, and to find a buddy and to keep in communication with that buddy on the phone or in person. That's the only way. It's really hard to succeed in isolation anymore. You really have to be a fanatic, obsessed person, and it's more fun to do it with somebody else too.
Well, thank you very much for an outstanding session this morning. Thanks for your time this afternoon.
Thanks, Vic. Great to be with you.